You've heard the legend. Viking berserkers storm the shield wall like wild animals, eyes blown wide, biting their shields, taking hits that would drop anyone else. People say they were on magic mushrooms. It's a great story. It's probably the wrong one. The darker, deadlier candidate behind that frenzy isn't a red-capped toadstool. It's a poison that can twist the mind, numb the body, and leave a warrior wrecked for days. Let's talk about the Battle Frenzy Brew. First, what are we dealing with? Berserkers and their wolf pelt cousins, the Ulfhednar, were shock troops, elite hitters. The sagas describe a switch flipping before battle. Mad as dogs or wolves, immune to iron and fire, gnawing the rims of their shields. Then, when the fury burned out, the crash. Weakness, trembling, spent. That roller coaster ride is the key. If we understand the highs and the lows, we can test the theories without romantic fog. The mushroom story is the fan favorite. Amanita muscaria looks iconic. Red cap, white spots, straight from folklore. Siberian shamans used it. Northern forests have plenty of it. The leap seems obvious, but there's a problem. A lot of them. The medieval texts don't actually say berserkers used mushrooms. The timing of the mushroom claim is modern, and the effects don't cleanly match the behavior. Fly agaric can give you nausea, wobble, confusion, and a strange dreamlike intoxication that isn't exactly sprint into spear points and ignore pain. Could some warriors have experimented with it? Sure. Does it fit the consistent pattern described in the sources? Not really. The mushroom story is a vibe, not a receipt.
So what fits better? Henbane, High of Siamus niger, a nightshade cousin with a nasty personality. It carries deliriant compounds that mess with your muscarinic receptors. In plain English, it can break the connection between signal and sensation. Pain blunts, heart races, mouth dries, temperature spikes, thoughts fracture, aggression spikes, hallucinations feel real, memory can tear. You can act, fight, and not remember the event clearly. Then comes the crash, dehydration, exhaustion, tremor, and a fog that can last for days. Now line that up with the saga bullet points. Ignore wounds, bite shields, foam at the mouth, go wild, then collapse into weakness. It's not a perfect overlay, but it's a suspiciously neat one. Here's where it gets interesting. The Henbane idea isn't just chemistry, it has archaeology behind it. In a high-status grave at the Viking ring fortress of Firkat, a woman, often interpreted as a ritual specialist, was buried with an unusual kit. Among her items, a small purse containing henbane seeds. That's not a casual weed seed blown in by chance. That's a pouch. Someone cared enough to carry those seeds. People in later periods used henbane smoke and ointments in magical contexts. If you toss the seeds on embers, the fumes aren't subtle. In the right dose, they can push the mind into the kind of trance described in the lore. None of this proves she dosed warriors, but it shows the plant was known, handled, and valued in ritual space.
Now think about the pre-battle ritual machine. These were not modern soldiers with standardized training manuals. They were warrior societies that wrapped combat in identity, myth, and performance. You can prime a person's state with rhythm, chant, breath, heat, and belief. Add a plant that strips out pain signals and slices up perception, and you've built a psychological and pharmacological spring. Pull the pin at the moment of contact, and the effect reads as superhuman. If you're the enemy and you see a man gnawing his shield and howling back at your line after taking a spear graze, how does your nerve hold? That's part of the point. The frenzy isn't only about the fighter who feels invulnerable, it's about the other side deciding they don't want to be here anymore. None of this requires a step-by-step recipe, and it shouldn't. This is history, not a tutorial. Henbane is toxic. Don't touch it, don't try it, and don't pretend this is safe. The real lesson is about how cultures use every lever, story, ritual, costume, rhythm, and sometimes plants, to shape human performance in extreme moments. Let's stress test the idea. Would Henbane make a warrior fearless? Not exactly. It would make him less connected to his pain, more agitated, and more suggestible to the persona he has rehearsed: bearskin, wolfskin, Odin's man. That's enough. In a shield wall, seconds matter. Momentum matters. A single terrifying charge can flip a fight. The sources also mention that after the fit, the berserker is weak and tame. That's the hangover you'd expect from an anticholinergic delirium and from total physiological overdrive. The body can't sprint through the gates of hell and then jog home like nothing happened. You pay the bill later.
What about the classic name origin? Bear shirt or bear shirt? Take your pick. Scholars argue both. Either way, the animal identity is central. If you believe you're the bear, you act like the bear. The drug doesn't create that belief out of thin air. It amplifies a cultural script drilled in by initiation and retold in poetry. You're not just fighting for your chief, you're performing a myth in front of friends, enemies, and the gods. Henbane doesn't supply courage, it steals your brakes. If mushrooms aren't the best fit, and Henbane is, why did the mushroom story grab the popular imagination? Simple. It's colorful. It's clickable. It plugs into modern psychedelic folklore. Henbane isn't pretty. It's a scraggly plant with a bad smell and a worse reputation. But history doesn't care about aesthetics. And the evidence trail points to the ugly plant with the nasty bite. There's also the matter of who handled this knowledge. That grave at Furkat is a clue. The woman buried with exotic goods, a staff and a pouch of dangerous seeds suggests ritual specialists who managed altered states as part of their social role. Call her a seeress, a vulva, a magician. Labels are messy, but the pattern is clear. Some people curated the edges of consciousness for the community. Prophecy, healing, cursing, and yes, preparing minds for battle. Whether the warriors smoked a pinch, drank a bitter mouthful, or were anointed with a salve is unknowable now and not the point. The point is access, intent, and effect.
Could Berserker Gang happen without any plant? Absolutely. You can push humans into altered states with breath, pain, heat, noise, and expectation. Alcohol alone changes pain thresholds and judgment. But stack a tuned ritual on top of a drug that knocks out pain signals and boosts aggression, and you get a repeatable pattern that looks an awful lot like what the sources describe. That's why the Henbane hypothesis keeps showing up in serious discussions. It doesn't claim certainty, it claims fit. Picture one man on the morning of battle. He has fasted. He has sweated in a tent. He has chanted the names. He has been marked with a sign and told who he is. He steps from shade into grey light, breathing like a bellows. His hands tingle. His mouth is dry as ash. The line advances. He feels like a god or no one at all. A shield slams against his rim and he bites down without thinking. A blade glances off his shoulder and the sensation registers as pressure, not pain. The shout that leaves him isn't language, it's momentum. The enemy looks at him and sees an animal where a man should be. The line wavers, then breaks. When it's over, the body calls in the debt. Tremor, thirst, nausea, sleeplessness, a hollowed-out fatigue that feels like the bones have been sucked clean. The legends skip that part, but the sagas don't. They say that when the fever abated, the warriors were weak and tame. That detail matters. It's the fingerprint you look for.
Was every berserker on something? Of course not. People are varied, times change, laws even tried to stamp this behavior out as the medieval world grew more regulated. But when you strip the story down to what had to be true to make those descriptions ring, Henbane stands there like a thorny weed in a field of redcaps, ugly and undeniable. If you've made it this far, you can see why the myth sticks and why the correction matters. We want superheroes. The reality is grittier. It's craft, it's ritual, it's pharmacology, it's culture hacking the human nervous system to build a weapon out of a person, and then paying for it afterward. That's more interesting than a fairy mushroom any day. Henbane is poisonous. This is historical analysis only. Do not ingest, handle, or experiment with it under any circumstances. So what do you think? Was the rage mostly training and belief, or did a bitter plant push warriors over the edge? Tell me your take, and if you want the sequel, we're riding east to the steppe next. The Scythians had their own way of summoning the storm.